So now, since we're going backwards, we started with the Sangha, then went to the Dharma, then the Buddhas. Now we'll be talking about the Guru. Okay, so here, when we talk about the Guru, there's different kinds of Gurus, there's different ways of seeing the Guru. Sometimes we talk about the ultimate Guru, the conventional Guru. The ultimate Guru is the wisdom of bliss and emptiness, the omniscient mind of all the Buddhas. That is the real Guru. The conventional Guru is the spiritual mentors that we have. Okay? So it doesn't mean all of our spiritual mentors are necessarily Buddhas or omniscient, but we practice seeing them with great regard as if they were, so that we can take the teachings really seriously in our practice. So it's very important, as with the three jewels, to be careful of our behavior with our spiritual mentors. Okay, so the kinds of things that we want to abandon is not following instructions. Okay, so this doesn't mean that you sit like a little puppy, waiting for your teacher to tell you to do everything because you can't think for yourself. Okay, it doesn't mean that. It means when you've consulted your teacher and your teacher's given advice, to try and do your best to fulfill that advice. If you can't fulfill the advice, go back and say, I'm very sorry, I wasn't able to do that. Yeah, and explain why. Or if at the time you think, that's something that's really I can't do for whatever reason, explain it right there and, talk to your teacher about it. What you don't want to do is say yes and then go off and do your own trip and completely ignore the advice you're given. Of course, that's disrespectful to do that, but the real reason is when we seek the guidance of somebody who we trust as being wiser than us, and then we disregard the advice they give us, who's getting harmed because of that? Yeah, it's not the teacher that gets harmed, it's us, because we throw out good advice, either because we're rebellious, we don't want to listen to anybody, we don't like the advice, whatever it is, So if something advice feels strange, talk about it. Perhaps you misunderstood what the advice was. Okay, if you can't do it, communicate. Yeah, so there's flexibility here. We're, human beings who have to communicate and work things out. But try and heed the advice you're given. Sometimes you see people who will go from one spiritual mentor to the next, asking for advice until they find one that tells them what they want to hear. Okay. That kind of person, why are they asking for advice anyway? Yeah, if you don't want to follow someone's advice because you don't trust them, why are you asking for advice to start with? Yeah, and why do you just, go around and ask until somebody tells you what you want to hear? It's just so you can say, well, I'm following my guru, but then all the other teachers that you asked before, you're not following, And you really, sometimes I meet people like that. You can see they get very, very confused in their practice, because they don't know who to follow, what to do. They basically want to do their own trip. Yeah, and so, yeah, what's there to say after a while to those people? Okay, so not following instructions. So this is important instructions, Dharma instructions, Sometimes you find people who are all flitting around the guru, and the guru says, please bring me a cup of tea, and they all dash off to get a cup of tea, elbow each other out of the kitchen, because I want to be the one to bring the teacher a cup of tea, get out of the way. And, meanwhile they're forgetting that the people the teacher cares the most about are other sentient beings, and they're mistreating other sentient beings in order to serve the teacher. Okay, so, not so much understanding right there. Other things to abandon, physically harming our guru, so certainly, slapping them, punching them, beating them up, anything like that. Causing trouble for your teacher. Yeah. So this, sometimes it can be that, you're behaving poorly, you're out in public and you're behaving poorly, and people say, whose disciple is that? Or you go in a big Sangha gathering and you're the uncooperative one, you're the one who's always going and saying, I don't like this, I want that, I need this. Then it really causes headaches for your teacher. Yeah. You experienced a little bit the result of somebody doing that. You didn't do it. But where she went for ordination, there had been another Western nun who had come. And the translator who was helping her, that nun was always complaining, always wanted something, never liked what happened, always wanted something special. So the person who was her specific guide just thought, boy, the Western nuns are, demanding. So when our dear, sweet, cooperative Venerable Samten came along, that person gave her a hard time because of what had happened before. Okay? So we don't want to be that kind of person who then makes it difficult for other people. Yeah? And especially like if we go to Taiwan for our ordination, they're really looking at what the Westerners do. And if we go in and, this bed's too hard, because like when I took ordination, we weren't sleeping on mattresses. There was a flat. They built these barracks and we had a piece of plywood to sleep on. And if you go in and everybody's happy like that, and you go, I can't sleep, this bed's too hard, I'm too close to somebody else, I want my own bed, I don't like this, I don't like that, I have my practices to do, don't tell me I have to get up, I have to go so early. I had all my commitments to do, I had to fit them in here and there, wherever I could, So you don't go and ask to be special, because that's the last thing you do, when you're going there to train. So, and if you do, ask to be special, then people are going, well, whose disciple are you? And then they look at the teacher and go, well, what is that teacher doing? They're not helping these people, they're not training these people. Okay? So things like that. Being really argumentative with other people in the community, that causes so many headaches to your guru, Because you argue with this one, you argue with that, and then, your teacher has to come out, talk to this one, talk to that one, try and get everybody back on the same page, and all you're arguing about maybe is where you put your shoes. Yeah, and people get into incredible arguments about petty things, don't they? Yeah. So all these kinds of things really cause headaches to your teacher, because they're trying to really do other things and then they get caught up in all this stuff. Of course it happens, so you seek help, you seek advice, but, do your best to kind of realize that, when you go out of kilter, it affects everybody else around you. So this doesn't mean that you then, withdraw and okay, I'm out of kilter, I'm out of here, I'm not going to talk to anybody, because that really disturbs the community too. People are going, where is she? What happened? So, try and work with your mind and do what you can. That's why we're all here, isn't it? Okay, yeah, causing trouble for your guru, abusing your guru, yelling, screaming at your teacher, shouting, calling them names. This happens. Sometimes your teacher tells you to do something you don't like, you get furious. I remember talking to one of my Dharma friends, and she's actually is very close to our teacher, but sometimes he would say things that she just exploded about. It might be, he liked George Bush, and she just found that intolerable. Or he wanted to, do something this way. And she said, that's totally, the wrong way to do it. We can't do it that way. So instead of like sitting down and calmly explaining, if we do it this way, these are the results, have you thought about this? She just would explode. Yeah, so this is the kind of thing you want to avoid doing. Yeah. Criticizing your guru, so criticizing your guru to their face, away from them, just bad-mouthing them. When people come here and they, we always ask them, have you lived in other communities? And if so, why did you leave? And I really listen to what the people say, because if the people start, oh, this is wrong and that's wrong, and the teacher did this and the teacher did that, nah. If it's a reputable teacher, then actually that person is telling me much more about themselves than they are about the teacher. They're telling me they're picky, they're difficult to get along with, they easily complain, and difficult to train. So, if we complain about our teachers, then it really says a lot about us, actually. Of course, if your teacher's doing something unethical, if they're abusing somebody, embezzling money, stealing the cat food in the middle of the night, something like that, then you might want to talk to them and, say what's up and, have a good conversation and clarify things. But then, to go off and just badmouth somebody because you're frustrated or they told you something that you didn't want to hear, that doesn't help you at all. Okay, and then not believing the guru, So sometimes our gurus give us advice, and we just don't believe them, yeah? Or we don't think they know what they're talking about or whatever. Of course, if it's a Dharma point, we're free to raise our hand, debate, and everything with our teacher. And if our teacher says, has a slip of tongue in the middle of teachings, we raise our hand and we correct it. I remember one time Serkan Rinpoche was teaching and he said something and then he kept going and going, and then finally somebody raised their hand and said, but Rinpoche, you said that. And he said, oh yeah, it was a slip of the tongue. I made a mistake. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Why did you let this go on for so long? Yeah? So of course, you make those kind of corrections because, you're helping everybody when you do. Yeah? But that's very different than being critical of our teacher, thinking they don't know what they're talking about, or, they're prejudiced against me, they're always on my case, and somebody else is doing the exact same thing, but they don't treat that person like that. It's only me that gets picked on. We go back into 3-year-old mode. So, this is the kind of thing we should avoid. Okay. Oh, also in terms of, behavior, usually you stand when your teacher enters the room, unless your teacher says, it's fine, sit down, when you're working and things like that, or you're in the middle of a conversation, just please continue. I remember when we were teaching English and Lama Yeshe would come, and then I'd always stand up, and Lama Yeshe said, sit down, you're in the middle of teaching them English. Go back to your class, So those aren't the times when you stand up. Your teacher's Dharma seat, you don't sit on your teacher's Dharma seat. You don't sit, you don't sleep on their bed. You treat their things with respect. Yeah, take care of their belongings and so on. Offer service with a happy mind.